Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gal's Friday night live stream. Hope everybody is doing well. I feel like I have to adjust my chair. Pardon me. Oh, maybe up a little more. So, yeah, tonight is Friday. Excuse me, June 12th. Oh my God, I have allergies. People who don't have allergies this year. Everything is just coated with pollen and it's hot and it's sweaty and so blah blah blah. Anyways, Lizzie Lou Studio is not air conditioned. So I got a fan here, I got a fan there, and I got a fan there. So I apologize for any background fan noise. I know my microphone sucks. I'm in the process of getting a new one. Um, Also, if you hear any background noise, of course, the neighbors are mowing their lawn and all that kind of stuff that goes on in a neighborhood. I don't want to say all that crap because that's the kind of noise you want to hear in a neighborhood. You don't mind hearing a dog bark every now and then. You don't mind hearing kids playing in the street, and you don't mind hearing your neighbor cut their grass on a June night. That's what June nights are for, um, even if you are trying to live stream. So, anyways, I hope you like my new shirt, Lizzie Lou Studio. Um, I'm experimenting with some stuff. I'm really trying to work very hard at getting some merch going. So I'm working on it, people. Thinking about maybe launching some coffee, t-shirts, coffee cups, that kind of stuff. Let me know what you're interested in, and I'll give it a shot. Or I'll try to give it a shot because I'm very, very busy. So let's see who's watching. Paul and Cheryl are going to be a few minutes late. I can't see who's watching. It shows 6 viewers. Please make a comment if you're there. Also, you will find a link in comments. Our friend Sue Jacobucci is going to be on a live stream tonight at 8 o'clock. And I did put the link in comments. Let's show her some support. Sue has published another essay in another Sam Baltrusis anthology, and Sue's work is excellent. Sam's work is excellent. So definitely show Sue some support and show Sam some support for the launching of this new book at 8 o'clock. And you can just follow the link that I dropped here. Um, let's see, what else? Let's do some housekeeping. Oh, and by the way, drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. I'm in Quincy, Massachusetts tonight. It's about 900 degrees out. I'm hot. I am sweaty. I am drinking Gatorade. I got 2 backup Gatorades over there and all my fans going. So let me know where you're watching from and just how hot or cool, if you're that lucky, it is where you're watching from. Because, as usual, can't see the comments lately, it seems my live streams start out that way. I'm going to go ahead and put them. There we go. I can see them there. I think I see from Sybil. I can't see them here. Nope. Put it back. Okay. Hi, Sybil. Hi, Laurie, our West Coaster. Hi, Joy. Miserable in Conway, Massachusetts. It must be 900 degrees in Conway as well. That's for sure. So thank you, everybody who's watching. Tonight we're going to talk about the Wendigo, and I want to thank my good friend Mark Ramponi. And sometimes you hear me reference the Reverend Mark. That's my good friend Mark Ramponi, one of my favorite human beings in the whole world. This show is for him tonight. He recommended the Wendigo. And Mark, don't think I haven't detected a theme here because, full disclosure, Mark is also the one who recommended Krampus. So I think maybe keep in the back of your mind there might be some similarities. There's definitely some differences. Also, in tonight's show on the Wendigo, what I don't have is any graphics. I don't have any graphics because there were way too many, and most of them were the Hollywood version. And we're going to talk about the difference between the Hollywood version of the Wendigo and the non-Hollywood version, because there's definitely a difference. So Reverend Mark is in the house. Sue is in the house. I just want to say hello to everybody. As always, Sybil and Carrie, if you're here, if you could help interact with our viewers, we appreciate it. Hi, Dan. Dan switched over from YouTube. He's watching on Facebook now. But again, for some reason, lately, on StreamYard, I can't view comments in the place I usually view them. Now I can put them on screen. They're so teeny tiny. So anyway, since everybody can see everybody's comments, please be nice to each other. Thank you very much. Let me get my housekeeping done. Thank you so much for watching on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for watching live. Thank you for watching now. Thank you for watching later if you watch me later. There's so many podcasts and live streams that I want to watch that sometimes I can't get to them at the moment, and I'll watch them when I'm putting my makeup on. I'll watch them when I'm dusting the house or cleaning up, or I'll listen to them on a car ride. I took a ride to Connecticut last weekend, and I caught up on some podcasts on the ride there. So thank you, anybody who listens to this at a later date as well. And liking and sharing and subscribing really helps my algorithm. I'm really trying to build something here. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Let's see, looking at my notes, you know me, got my purple paper clip, purple paper clip. What the hell is this thing? Clipboard, purple clipboard, and my purple paper and pink paper. And tonight I have a black pen. You can hardly see it. Hang on. There you go. Now you can see this when I point. So I've got some colorful stuff all around me that makes me happy. I'm in the Zulu studio and I'm so very hot. I'm sure you are all as well. Anyways, I want to remind folks that we are an 18+ space, and tonight I really want to drive that home. The Wendigo does deal with some very disturbing material, and you know what I like to say, I'm really disturbed that we're not more disturbed by the disturbing things we talk about. So keep that in mind. But the story of the Wendigo is quite disturbing, and so this is an 18 and over space tonight. I try to make it, plus I'm going to swear. So there's that. Unless not Kathy tunes in, and then I won't swear. But I don't think Kathy's tuning in tonight. But anyways, also I want to remind you to get comfortable. Sit in your favorite chair. Pour yourself a glass of wine. Pour a cup of coffee. Crack a cold beer. Put your favorite beverage in your favorite cup. I have Body Armor Light Peach Mango with lots of ice. And like I said, 2 backups of it. And also, I want to remind everybody that this is a 420 friendly space. Smoke them if you got them. I know I sure did. That's what I'm doing, hanging around on a Friday night, doing that and talking about the Wendigo. Who could ask for anything more, right? Also, and I never, ever, ever want to forget giving a shout out to Ladybug Pest Control, my day job. Linda, who is the owner of Ladybug Pest Control, and also my friend, is always very, very supportive of anything I do outside of work. Of course, she's supportive of me at work. She's a great supervisor, and I love my job. But she's very supportive of my ventures out of the office as well. And I'm very lucky. I work 4 days a week, so I've got Fridays to do all kinds of other stuff. Hi, KT. Thank you so much for joining us. And thanks, Paul. Thanks for watching. And KT is from Thrive, my dispensary. Just giving a shout out there. And Paul said the audio is better on Facebook. Well, I got fans going everywhere, and my microphone sucks, so I'm going to try to speak up, and I do apologize. Thank you all so much for your patience. So isn't it funny, KT, you tuned in just as I was telling everybody this is a 420 friendly space, so smoke them if you got them, because I sure did. So anyways, and I was thanking Linda, my boss at Ladybug. Not just thanking Linda for being a great supervisor and being supportive of what I do, but also wanted to remind anybody in the Quincy area, if you have pests, give us a call at Ladybug Pest Control in the office, and I'm sure we can help you out. Any other shout outs? Let's see. I also want to remind folks about the walk with Christy Parrish. Let's see, I'm going to change my banners here. So if anybody is interested in scheduling a walk with Christy Parrish, you're going to email me at the email address below, jenniferpayne36a@gmail.com. Or you can message me directly through Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies on Facebook, or if you're my friend, then at Jennifer Payne on Facebook. But DM me and I will schedule. You wouldn't want to contact Christy because she doesn't want to know about the location. So you'd want to contact me and you would book it through me, and I would make all the arrangements. And then Christy and I and our crew, and there is a crew, will show up at your location and we'll film Christy's walkthrough, and we will fine tune an episode at the end and have something to hopefully interesting to present. So if you are interested in scheduling a walk with Christy Parrish, contact me, and I misspelled contact Jenniferpayne36a@gmail.com, gmail.com or message me on Facebook. You know what I meant. Thank you all very much. I'm sitting here in this hot studio trying to type up these things and sweat my ass off. So I do apologize about that. I'll talk more about that later. So we have filmed 2 episodes. We're filming our 3rd episode tomorrow. We've got several other episodes booked. We're booking well into the summer. So if you would like yours booked, hit us up for sure. Absolutely. Contact me, reach out, hit me up here in this, and I'll reach back out to you from here. So we would love to hear from you, and we would love to schedule a walk with Christy Parrish at your property, commercial or residential. Hope to hear from you. So, all right, back to my notes. Those are all my shout outs. All right, what is the Wendigo? Very, very strange. I thought I knew what it was. Part of me was right and part of me was wrong. I get my notes are blowing in the breeze here. There we go. Okay. So yeah, what is the Wendigo? Well, for myself, I knew that it was like a Native American or First Nation legend or myth. From my first exposure to the Wendigo was Stephen King. Oh, hello, Susan. Hello, Kelly. More people who are joining us. Thank you very much. But yeah, my first exposure to the Wendigo was Stephen King in what was it? Pet Sematary. So I haven't read Pet Sematary in a very long time. So I looked up a little bit about the meaning of the Wendigo in Pet Sematary. And Stephen King, being Stephen King, or any author, especially a horror author for that matter, really took a lot of kind of creative and poetic license with his interpretation of the Wendigo. There was a lot of original to it, but he also molded it to fit his story, which any good author does. So not knocking him, I'm just saying, I don't know about you all, but that was my very first ever hearing of the Wendigo. Now, it certainly scared the crap out of me, like so many Stephen King novels do, and novels do. And the Wendigo was one of those myths that kind of stayed with me. And I certainly remember one year, my husband and I were at these cottages in Littleton, New Hampshire. We were at, what was the name of the place? I don't know. We were at these rustic log cabins. That's where we were, and it had snowed, and we were in the heart of New Hampshire, and we were out for a walk on a snowy night, and we had a rustic log cabin, and we had a fire going, and we were out walking, and the snow was really deep. It was probably February, so there was inches of soft snow, but there was also a snowpack with a crust underneath it, and we were out just kind of walking around. And suddenly, like the mood changed, man. The air changed, and we could hear something. We didn't hear something walking through the woods like you would hear a moose. That's what I would expect to hear up there. Oh, hi, Sybil. Hi, Nathan. Kelly said she's never heard of the Wendigo. Well, you're about to get schooled. When to what, where, when to what, when to where, when to who, when to go. So anyways, back to my New Hampshire story. So we heard that something coming through after things went really quiet, right? And we heard something coming through the woods. But as I was saying, it wasn't walking like you would expect a moose to walk. It would be a step, and then you would hear it crunch it would break through that crunch of layer of ice, and then silence. And then another step, and it would crunch through that layer of ice. And then there was silence. And then crunch. And I said to my husband, I'm scared. And I grabbed his hand and we turned around and we hightailed it back to the rustic log cabin. We never saw what it was. It could have been a bear. It could have been a moose. But it didn't sound like a bear and it didn't sound like a moose. And there were just other weird things, like things really changed when it happened. Like things got really still and it was just really bizarre. So in my mind, I always said, well, that was a Wendigo, and certainly in the Stephen King faction of the Wendigo, which was good enough for me. Good evening, Cheryl. Cheryl and Paul have joined us. Thank you so much. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow night. We have a private event and I'll be hanging out with you guys tomorrow night, and I'm very excited for that. So So yeah, so that's my experience with the Wendigo. I thought of Bigfoot too, Dan, but no, this was more of a Wendigo vibe. And when I researched the Wendigo, I thought it really kind of fit that. It really fit that. So anyway, so what is the Wendigo? It's a creature who embodies or warns us of gluttony and greed. He is malevolent. He's meant to frighten us. He's meant to warn us and caution us against the dangers of cannibalism. That is the Wendigo. That's what the Wendigo does. Or that's what he is. And it's an elemental. It's not an element. It's not a former human spirit. Well, maybe it is a former human spirit. You be the judge of that. Hear how something becomes a Wendigo. You're not born. Wendigos don't mate and have Wendigo babies, like bull Wendigo babies or something like that. You'll hear about it. But anyways, they warn against gluttony and greed and the dangers of cannibalism. Now, it's really important to note the geography of the Wendigo tales. North America, New England, northern New England, Maine, all across Canada, Minnesota, Alberta, Canada. So that's the area. You've got, you've heard of like the Bible Belt in America. You've heard of the Sun Belt in America. Well, let's call that the Snow Belt. Let's call that band that goes from northern Maine, Caribou, Fort Fairfield, Presque Isle, way up there, further north than Fulton, and go all the way west, and then you're and north and west, and now you're again Minnesota, Alberta, deep in the woods of Canada. Very much cold terrain locations, cold geography, very snowy geographies. Imagine how hard it is to get around in the snow now. In Boston, it sucks, but imagine what it would have been like to get around in someplace like Alberta, Canada, or Presque Isle, Maine, in after a 40-inch snow blizzard or something like that. So that factors heavily into our story of the Wendigo. Oops, sorry about that. Factors heavily into our story, that geography. Okay, so keep that in mind. A tale against greed, a cautionary tale against isolation in the brutal winters, especially across North America. I mean, again, these harsh winters are really going to come into play. So where does the Wendigo come from? I tracked it down in my very light research. You know me, never a deep dive. Look it up yourself. Don't take my word for it. If you hear something interesting here, take it and run with it. But I found that the Wendigo actually goes back to three. Its roots go back to three different First Nation, Indigenous. I mean, no offense to anybody. You know what I mean. Thank you for understanding. Not making political statements. I'm just telling you the facts. So, but the legend comes from Algonquin, Ojibwe, which I'm probably not saying correctly, and I apologize profusely, and also from Cree tribes. From those three tribes, this myth comes from. I think that Algonquin, in the Stephen King story, it was the Micmac Indians, but also Algonquin, certainly very notable presence in northern Maine, Canada, that area. So Ojibwe, I'm not exactly sure where they were. In Cree, I think you'd see more along the Alberta, Canada area, if I'm not mistaken. And I may be mistaken, and if I am, I apologize for that. But those three, basically those three tribes or those three First Nations had myths that related to the Wendigo, warning against greed and gluttony, and that ultimate human taboo of cannibalism. In Ojibwe, the word Wendigo translates literally to winter cannibal monster. So gee, that kind of makes sense. And then in Algonquin, the word for Wendigo is Wintikawa, which literal translation is owl. Now, what I think about is interesting about the Algonquin word Wintikawa, which means owl, but also means Wendigo. I think a couple of things. The first thing that crossed my mind was the word angel, and that the word angel is absolutely a misinterpreted word for the Hebrew word messenger. So things can get misinterpreted on a massive, massive scale. And I think that something like that may have happened here. So maybe the word didn't literally mean owl. Maybe this word meant nocturnal hunter. An owl is a nocturnal hunter. An owl is a vicious hunter. An owl has a very sharp beak, sharp talons. There's nothing warm and fuzzy or gentle about an owl when it comes to hunting. And they'll eat mice whole, and you'll find their droppings, and it's just a mouse skeleton in fur. So I think that perhaps there was not, maybe the Algonquin didn't mean to literally use the word to mean owl. Maybe it meant owl-like, nocturnal, a vicious predator, that kind of thing. I feel like that's open for interpretation, but that's just the world according to Jennifer. And gals, if you have your own interpretation, I'd love to hear it. Or you can start your own live stream and present it yourself. But yeah, so I thought that's very interesting. And yeah, Sybil, because of the burial ground, I want to go back to the Stephen King story. That Wendigo really in Stephen King's story uses grief against people. It uses their greed against people. I believe there's cannibalism in that story too. So anyway, so Sue is saying owl, flying cat. Yeah, there's all kinds of interpretations of things, and not everything is a literal interpretation, right? We know this. Other northeastern names for the Wendigo or Wendigo type spirit would be Chinu and Giwakwa. So those would be other northeastern folklore. So really what I found was that we know the word Wendigo. Our culture knows the word Wendigo. But across this area, there were at least 2, 3, 4 other names for a very, very similar spirit. A spirit that cautions against greed and gluttony and isolating and the ultimate taboo of cannibalism. So I thought that was interesting. Now, what does the Wendigo look like? Like I said, I did not even get any graphics. I looked and said, oh, where do I even begin? Because most of the graphics I found gave us a Hollywood version of the Wendigo, and they are incorrect. So I'm just going to tell you about it. And you know what I say? Use your imagination. I think that's going to picture something more frightening than anything I could find on Google Images or create on ChatGPT. So Mark, I want to throw this. Let's see if I can get this comment up there. Oh, shit. No. What did I just do? All right, I cannot. There we go. There's my comments. Hello, everybody. There's Mark's comments. We're doing this show because Mark suggested it. Mark's grandfather was Mohawk and would say it meant night stalker or night hunter. I would absolutely agree with that. This is absolutely a nocturnal creature. And I think that plays into kind of the theory of thinking that it's owl-like or that kind of thing. So, yeah, Mark, I'd say that your grandfather was definitely onto something. So now, what does the Wendigo look like? Well, because he's a cautionary tale against cannibalism, he actually does commit that act, okay? So hear me out. And again, like I said, use your imagination. Your imagination is going to come up with anything better than I ever could have got off Google Images. 7 foot, towering, ashen, frostbitten, long fangs, dripping in ice, and emaciated and gaunt cheeks, red eyes, and a heart literally made of solid ice. His lips are chewed away because he chews at human flesh. So he's chewed away his own lips. He does not have antlers. Antlers were an advent of the 20th century horror movies, video games. I would like to have looked up a little more and see what horror movies and video games he was in, but I kind of ran out of time because I'm a busy girl lately. And I was so pleased with the 5 pages of notes that I got to begin with. So again, no antlers. So you're picturing this tall 7 foot with these claws and these long dripping fangs and red eyes and a heart of literal ice, who is starving for human flesh. And the paradox of the Wendigo, the absolute paradox of his existence, is that with every human that he eats, he becomes bigger and needs to eat more. His misery is because he is in a constant state of starvation. He is insatiable. And that is the danger. That is the cautionary danger against that ultimate taboo, which I'm not going to say too many times because I just don't trust that YouTube or Facebook isn't going to flag me for saying the C word, CANNIBALI, that word. But so he's the ultimate in misery, and because he is never satisfied. He's never full. He's always starving. If he eats, he grows. And if he grows, he needs to eat to feed that. So it's just a very, very vicious cycle. It sounds awful. He's both gluttonous and emaciated, like constant eating and never ever satisfied. He's just locked in a state of constant starvation, which is absolute misery. I apologize for the noise that my notes are making. It's like a fan's blowing everywhere. Okay, but on to page 2. So how would you know that this nasty thing is near? Well, I heard one. I believe I heard one crushing through the snow. But also, similar to Bigfoot. Who said Bigfoot earlier? Was that you, Dan? Similar to Bigfoot, the Wendigo kind of announces itself with a really foul stench of death, decay, decomposition. And maybe Bigfoot would be more like a skunky, swampy smell, from what I understand. So maybe not so much of a comparison, but the Wendigo gives off a smell of decay and awfulness, corruption. He smells of corruption. If something can smell of corruption, the Wendigo does. You may hear what would be described as an unnatural mimicry. You might hear your name called from in the woods, but there's something wrong with it. It doesn't sound right, and you know it doesn't sound right. Or it might sound like you're calling your own name. So in an unnatural mimicry, something calling your name, beckoning you into the woods, but it's not your mother, and it's not somebody calling you to dinner. Something absolutely wrong with it. Something else that would indicate that a Wendigo would be in the area was what I had said earlier, was when I had said when we were in New Hampshire, when Paul waking up for work at 2 a.m. Yeah, I did. You hear that one lone mourning dove, right? I know that one. But the birds and the animals just go completely silent, and they did that when I was in New Hampshire. Before we heard that noise, everything just went completely silent, and that's what they say happens when the Wendigo is coming. You might feel a sense of dread, of paranoia, of feeling watched in a very bad way. That's never a good feeling when you're alone in the woods. You might see long shadows moving. A strange figure might be moving in a stop-start motion. What was I describing? A stop, start, motion. It was not footsteps through the snow. It was not footsteps through the snow. It was a one step and another step and certainly with more of a delay. I'm editing the delay for the sake of time because it's 7 o'clock on a Friday night, and you know, um, but you get what I mean. So the more I studied this week, I was convinced that I very likely may have had a Wendigo experience. Um, so I actually think that's kind of cool. But that stop start motion, I thought that was really telling, or crawling weirdly. So again, a weird crawl there. And this, whatever this was not making normal noises going through the woods. It wasn't a fox. Fox wouldn't have gone through the wood, the snow like that. Certainly, nothing small like that. Um, so how does a Wendigo become a Wendigo? How does a Wendigo become a Wendigo? Well, they're not born. They don't get married and have babies. It's not that kind of thing with the Wendigo. Caution, folks. This is a cautionary tale to all my friends. Anyone can be turned into a Wendigo. So take that as your caution for the night. There's your public service announcement for Friday, June 12th. There's your PSA. Okay, anyone can turn into a Wendigo. They are not born; they are made. Well, how do you make a Wendigo? How do you make that nasty 7-foot creature that's starving for flesh, that stinks and crawls funny and comes after you and gives you that sense of dread? How does that happen? Well, let's find out. So we were talking about that ultimate taboo of human upon human kind of, cannibalism thing. Like I said, I don't really like saying it. I don't mind saying the word. I can say any word. I'm not afraid of very many words, but I don't want YouTube and Facebook to shut me down or to flag me or anything like that. I'm probably going to get told I can't monetize this. I don't monetize anyways, so I can live with that. So anyways, a human will turn into a Wendigo after eating human flesh to survive a harsh winter. So, which is usually when people eat human flesh. But we might hear about something called Wendigo psychosis very shortly. So hold that thought. Isn't that crazy? Like I said, humans turn into a Wendigo after eating human flesh in order to survive a winter. Or you can be possessed by one. Or you can be cursed into being one by a shaman or another human being. I think that'd be pretty cool to curse somebody to be a Wendigo. Or you can become a Wendigo if you dreamed about it. So everybody watching tonight, do not dream about the Wendigo tonight. That sounds like big trouble. Lisa, my #1 fan, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining, Lisa. As you know, we're talking about the Wendigo. And last but not least, you can turn into a Wendigo if you are greedy or gluttonous. So let's go down that checklist again, you guys. Make sure you don't turn into a Wendigo. So you turn into one after eating human flesh, after surviving a harsh winter, or you can be possessed by one, or you can be turned into one by a shaman or cursed by another human being, or you can turn into a Wendigo if you dreamed about the beast. Do not dream about the Wendigo tonight. Or you can turn into a Wendigo if you're greedy or gluttonous. So it's really, again, a cautionary tale against greed and gluttony. Well, if I encounter a Wendigo, what the hell can I do about it? I guess that would be a really good question. Mark, take notes, because Mark, the Reverend Mark, has been in search of the Wendigo his whole life. And as you can see, his grandfather was in search of it too. Take notes. They're actually very traditional monster weapons. I'm using the word monster, but I'm not joking. I'm not laughing. So I'm sorry for using the word monster, but it's traditional monster kill tools. Silver bullets, silver knives, blades of steel or iron. So I think that while the Wendigo is a real badass, he's got some real simple weaknesses. I think silver is a good thing to keep in your arsenal if you're for protection. Anyways, But yeah, silver bullets, knives or blades of steel or iron. And what you do have to do, it's not just, you don't just show it and then kills the Wendigo. No, what you do have to do is get to the heart of Wendigo, the heart of the Wendigo, because you have to melt it. The heart of the Wendigo is solid ice. You have to melt the heart of the Wendigo to kill it. But I just gave you every tool in the book on how to do it. So maybe I'm related to the Van Helsings. So how can you control your dreams? Nathan, you can control your dreams, actually. I was only joking when I said don't dream about the Wendigo, but Nathan, Sybil, talk to Nathan offline about controlling his dreams, some astral projection, and that kind of thing. Nathan, totally, totally doable. We'll have to do some dream experiments. Oh my goodness, that sounds very, very exciting. I'm looking to open my mind to some new stuff. So, anyways, but yeah, so it seems that the Wendigo, if you could encounter a Wendigo, make sure that you've got your silver bullets or your, your blade of steel or iron, because once you do, he's very weak to that. It's like kryptonite for Superman. So, very classic monster kill. I think that's interesting. Now, I said earlier we may hear about something called Wendigo psychosis. Hang on, I gotta put my notes back up. And Wendigo psychosis at one point was actually a real mental illness, I guess you would call it, a real diagnosis, I guess you would say. It's rare, but it is quote unquote historically documented. You know what? Before I talk about Wendigo psychosis, let's back up a minute and let's hear from Sybil. Good thing that Sybil is a decent human being, so the Wendigo really probably had no interest in her at all. Thank goodness. So I'm not the only one who had an experience with something definitely supernatural, more than likely elemental, and I'm not exactly sure what the definition of elemental is, but in my idea, and I should look this up because I have books and of course the internet, but an elemental is something that is not an element and was never human, but is certainly a spirit of some type. So that's my understanding of it, and I'm probably wrong, and feel free to correct me. I'm okay with that, as long as you do it nicely. Thank you. So, but anyways, I wanted to say about the Wendigo psychosis. It does say that it was rare but historically documented. You want to know some effed up shit? You know, it was historically documented. The Salem witch trials, okay, and that they were not possessed and it wasn't witches, and we all know there are several theories to that. So that was historically documented too. So just because Wendigo psychosis was historically documented doesn't mean it's historically accurate. Am I right? Yeah. Big loud card just went by. My windows are open. Anyways, so Wendigo psychosis is very much a culture-bound syndrome. So you wouldn't see Wendigo psychosis in Navajo tribes, perhaps in the drier, warmer climes of Southwest United States. You would not see Wendigo psychosis in Russia, maybe you would. Now that would be interesting if it goes across that winter band, but you're not seeing it in Sicily. So very, very culture bound syndrome. It's a syndrome. It consists of an intense delusion that a person they have an intense delusion that they're possessed by a Wendigo. The syndrome creates a terrifying compulsion for human flesh, to consume human flesh, and believe that they're turning into a Wendigo. Let's see, Kelly. There you go. John L. Tenney points out that our restricted human language limits our understanding of complex creatures and energies that exist in the universe. Thank you for that. I feel like that's almost like a validation of my use of the word elemental, that there's something there that's not an element that we know of this earth, and that was never human before. So I feel, thanks again, Kelly. Like I said, I really feel that validated what I said, what my feeling of an elemental is. The syndrome, again, being very culture bound, it affected Algonquin communities, which would be Maine, northern Maine, that area, Canada, northeastern United States. And this syndrome has a very specific timeline of onset. So the very first phase is the prodromal phase. I feel like, again, very validated. Thank you so much, Kelly. Kelly's one of our research specialists. Kelly and Sue are research specialists. Anyways, the prodromal phase. So this syndrome starts with the prodromal phase, which begins with poor appetite, nausea, vomiting, insomnia, deep depression, really severe depression. Almost sounds like an anorexia to me. Maybe I'm gonna like throw out some modern day things that line up with this. I don't know. What do you guys think? So the prodromal phase, the first phase of Wendigo psychosis, is that deep depression, nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, and extreme depression. The second phase is the melancholic phase. They call it a semi-stupor, extreme, severe social anxiety, intense paranoia, extreme anxiety. We were talking about anxiety, some of us together the other night, and anxiety is, everybody has anxiety, and we have a need for anxiety, and sometimes we do things to create anxiety, and that can really hamper our abilities, I think. Hi, Carrie. Carrie's just tuning in. Oh, Carrie's my right-hand man. I love Carrie. So glad you could join us tonight, Carrie. And I'll see you Sunday, Carrie. So back to the melancholic phase, semi-super social paranoia. It sounds maybe to me like almost like an onset of schizophrenia. Number 3, the delusional phase. This is the third phase of the onset of Wendigo psychosis, the delusional phase. Highly agitated. The person is having hallucinations. They believe that they have a heart of ice growing inside. Again, this is why it's culture bound. Like a person who didn't know about a Wendigo with a heart of ice growing inside wouldn't have a psychosis that they have a heart of ice growing inside, like the Wendigo does. So, but again, to me, you're talking about anorexia, depression, maybe bipolar, possibly schizophrenia, possibly brought on, probably trauma-induced, because all of these things. Oh, and fourth, the ultimate culmination, beginning to view people as prey or animals, resulting in violence and cannibalism. But typically manifested, all these 4 stages manifested after brutal, harsh winters. Cabin fever. We've all heard of cabin fever. We know of tales of cabin fever. We also know tales of the Donner Party. Man, survival is a very interesting instinct, and you're not just going to roll over and die. No judgments here, people. No judgments here. But again, that we were talking about Wendigo psychosis. So a person really believes they're turning into a Wendigo, and manifests it again after these brutal winters. And psychiatrists today think that Wendigo psychosis is a way to deal with survivor's guilt of the harsh winters. It's a way to justify what somebody's done to survive. Like I said, I could never judge that. Never in a million years, until I walk a mile in those shoes. I just cannot judge. But I can say this. I would imagine that would cause I would imagine being forced into that type of survival situation would be highly traumatic, and trauma does things to people, and we have to understand that. We have to understand that people, yeah, I feel very strongly about that, we need to approach things with trauma-informed care. There you go. But anyways, this was, Wendigo psychosis was a way to kind of cope with that survivor's guilt, coping with doing what you did, what you had to do so that you could survive or that your family could survive. So very, very sad, a coping mechanism, and a tough one nonetheless. So there were actually some documented cases, documented cases of Wendigo psychosis, and I'll tell you about them briefly once I get my notes before they move on in this breezy area. So there was the story of this guy named Swift Runner. So that is a First Nation name, Swift Runner, in 1878 to 1879, harsh winter. He took his mother, his brother, his wife, and his 6 children and headed west in Alberta, Canada. Head west, young man. Go west, young man. And he took the whole damn family west into the harsh Alberta winter. The remote wilderness. He was a trapper and a hunter, but 6, 7, 8, 9. He had 9 mouths to feed, and they headed out into a trapper's cabin into the harsh winters of Alberta, Canada, in the winter of 1878 to 1879. By spring, Swift Runner returned home alone, back to the city alone. He claimed on his return that everyone had starved to death. 6 children, his brother, his mother, his wife. 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 9. He claimed that all 9 of his family members starved to death, and yet he appeared well fed and healthy. He was not emaciated, and he was not starving. So investigators thought that this was suspicious. So they trekked out to his cabin in Alberta, and they checked out everybody that was there. And what they found, I don't know exactly what they found, but I do know that they found human fat rendered in a pot on the stove. It wasn't cooking, it had already been rendered. And they found human bones that had been broken to remove the marrow. So we know that marrow is highly, highly nutritious. Fat is good for 1,000 things, from eating to making candles and all kinds of survival shit. So anyways, so his defense was Wendigo psychosis. He said a malevolent cannibalistic spirit took him over, and he had learned about it in Cree folklore. But the court dismissed his defense, and he was ultimately executed for it. I know, what a story, right? I know. He was ultimately executed for it. He was the first person legally executed by hanging in Canada on the western frontier at Fort Saskatchewan in December of 1879. They did not buy his defense. And then in Minnesota, does this sound familiar, Sue? I told you I had some Minnesota facts for you on the Wendigo. Some Minnesota facts on the Wendigo. There were a string of sightings. Let me fix my notes, because I did this part for my other friends. Mostly I did this show for Mark, but the Minnesota Wendigo research. This is for Sue and Nathan. So anyways, a string of sightings in the late 1800s to the early 1900s in the town of Roseau. Am I saying it correctly? It sounds like it might be French. Roseau. Roseau. Followed by many, many unexplained deaths and widespread fear and panic. So this kind of thing can cause a lot of widespread fear and panic. So yeah, Sue. So the town of Roseau, and then there was the Fiddler. I thought it said Fiddler, but I don't see an L here. So I was tired when I wrote these notes out last night. Maybe I just forgot the L, and I apologize. I think it is Fiddler, Jack Fiddler. He was a tribal leader of the Cree tribe, and he and his son killed a woman that they claimed was possessed by a Wendigo. So for some reason, they believed that this woman was possessed by a Wendigo and was either attempting to or had consumed of the human flesh, that ultimate taboo. So I don't know what happened to them. But in northern St. Louis, there were persistent sightings of the Wendigo to 1963, which I thought was interesting. But 1963 was kind of as late as I could really find on sightings on the Wendigo. And when I get these noisy papers out of my way, I'll tell you why. Sightings of the Wendigo waned as we progressed into the 20th century because the Wendigo ultimately was about starvation and the consumption of that ultimate taboo. So as the 20th century progressed and we got things like more widespread infrastructure, so people had access to heat. People weren't freezing and starving so much to death they could cook food. People had access to electricity. So again, the heat and refrigeration of food, storing of food, properly preparing food, food banks, wellness checks. There's really so many more things that we've got in place now. I know there's isolation, but in North America, you can't really get that isolated for that long. They say eventually in any direction, 3 days, you're going to come walk for 3 days and you're going to come out somewhere, you know. But basically, better access to services and infrastructure kind of eliminated that Wendigo myth of your cabin fever, you know, your family dying or killing your family and, you know, using them as your survival means of survival, that ultimate taboo. So guys, that is your Friday night tale, Friday, June 12th, the tale of the Wendigo. When to what, when to where, when to who, when to go. I really, really enjoyed researching this one because I knew very, very little about it. I also feel like the Wendigo, like Krampus, like I said earlier in the show, maybe you might see a few similarities here. I feel like the Wendigo, like Krampus, may have been used as a cautionary tale to keep people under control. You know, don't take your 35 family members out into the wilderness alone by yourself. The Wendigo gonna get you. Don't be bad boys and girls. Krampus gonna get you. Don't be bad boys and girls at Easter. The Osterhaus, the Easter bunny's going to get you. You know, so there's all kinds of these things out there that are like all about like keeping control. And I think that the Wendigo is one of them. So I learned a lot. I hope you guys did too. I really, really enjoyed my research on this. Mark Ramponi, keep the subjects coming. I love the subjects that you recommend. And I'm always, I have a list a mile long of 1,000 topics, but you know, I got to be in the mood to present something. So sometimes I might reach out and say, hey, what do you want me to present this week? And I will. Damn the list. And you know, so anyways, thank you all for watching, everybody. It's 7:23. Been talking for almost an hour. And listen, before we go, Lisa's got a public service announcement for us. Lisa, one of my besties, one of my best friends, here's another reason why not to be possessed by a Wendigo. Wow, that is stunning. So I think that besides all the mental aspect of that, there is a physical downfall to that as well. There's a physical downfall to that as well. So take your lessons, your cautionary tale of the Wendigo, avoid gluttony, don't do that ultimate taboo. I'm so glad that you guys were here tonight to learn about the Wendigo with me. And again, thanks a lot, Mark Ramponi, for for this great topic. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. I got a very busy weekend ahead. Private event tomorrow night with some good friends, and then Sunday we're filming an episode. So more to come. And again, if you guys want to, let me throw my banner back up. Ooh, ooh, ooh. If you want to book, is that the one? Yep. If you want to book the walk, email jenniferpayne36a@gmail.com or message me on Facebook. DM me and let me know, and we'll set something up. Here goes our 4th of July menu. Yeah, I'm glad we're going to Friendlies, Paul. I'm glad we're going to Friendlies. On that note, you guys, I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. And again, stay tuned because I got big, big news coming up in the coming weeks. I will talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. And thanks again, Mark.